DFS community? Welcome into week 7 of one of the most accurate DFS shows in the industry. This is the Adjusted Line Play Report, where we take a deep dive into the play in the trenches to determine the game scripts and player outcomes. The show is presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffman. You can find myself over on Twitter at Todzilla1337. You can find Zilla Fantasy Elite over on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy. As always, folks, today's show powered by Rain Total Body Fuel. You looking to make it rain some cash in your DFS lineups? Tune in to the Adjusted Line Play Report from Zilla Fantasy Elite and follow host Todd Hoffman while he delivers the most accurate DFS advice in the industry and make it rain. All right, today's flavor, my favorite, white gummy bear. Get a little sip of this before we get underway. Oh boy, that is excellent stuff. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. As always, we're going to go over the main slate from the highest Vegas game total down to the last. Very interesting slate this week, as we have 3 games actually tied for the worst total on the slate. They're all at 37.5 points, which is super low. A bunch of them were near 40. So kind of an interesting one this week with not a ton of high-scoring affairs on the docket. So it will probably play an effect in terms of rostership percentages in your tournaments this week. So keep that in mind. All right, let's get into it. Let's start off in Kansas City, where the Chargers are visiting. Kansas City are 5.5-point home favorites there. 48 Vegas game total, number 1 in the slate. That means Kansas City's team implied total with that 5.5-point team favorite there. 26.75 for the team implied total. The Chargers coming in with 21.25. Kansas City actually the highest team total on the slate with that 26.25, and then the Chargers at 9, ninth best. All right, and we're going to get into the away team here. The Chargers, number 7 in offensive pass protection, number 8 in pass DVOA. Kansas City, unfortunately for them, number 2 in defensive pass rush, number 6 in pass DVOA. So they're really getting after the quarterback this season. So can the Chargers hold up? Probably. They have a pretty good line there, but I would assume Kansas City is probably going to get home. They're going to have a little bit less time than they're used to. They're in Kansas, or not, a more difficult time in Kansas City for the Chargers. I would say typically when this is the case, if they're under duress, that leads to a little bit quicker passes. So Keenan Allen's certainly capable of getting open. I'd expect more targets to go his way. I'd expect more targets to go to Austin Eckler. And I'd also expect more targets to go the tight end route. Which one that's going to be? It's usually Everett in terms of the volume. But, if they get in towards the goal line, we do see Donald Parham in there. And Donald Parham does get mixed in here and there in their offense regardless. So that's kind of how I'm seeing this pass game go for the Chargers. Unfortunately for them, that's probably going to be how they move the ball the best, because the Chargers are 28th in offensive run blocking. Kansas City just middle of the pack there at 16, but that's heavily in their favor. DVOAs are a little bit closer. They're pretty even. So I wouldn't expect the Chargers to run very well. If you're looking for prop bets, I would say Eckler in terms of receptions. He's probably going to have over 4. I'm not sure what his line is set to right now, but I think he's going to have a pretty good opportunity to get 5, 6, 7 receptions in this game. Wouldn't be too shocked to see that route. And then, maybe smashing that under on his yardage total for the rush attempts there. I don't see the Chargers being in a situation where they're running the ball a lot against this Kansas City offense. So should get a little bit interesting there. So that's kind of the Charger side. I don't expect the run game to be very good. If they're going to be moving the ball, it's going to be via the pass game. It's a little bit more even up there, but the pass game is probably going to need to get the ball out a little bit quicker. So I'd be looking more towards Keenan Allen Gerald Everett and Eckler to take the bulk of that work on. Now, getting into the Kansas City side, we actually see them pretty poor there in terms of the offensive pass protection, number 18. The Chargers, number 1 in the defensive pass rush category. The DVOAs are completely flip-flopped, though. Kansas City, number 5 in offensive pass DVOA. Chargers, 21 in defensive pass DVOA. And usually this is indicative of almost like fantasy points. So Kansas City, a little bit more explosive. So they're doing a little bit better on those plays where this pass protection is more so the sack rate and how quickly they're getting home. So overall pass game here with the DVOA and how well they're moving the ball. Hey, did they get a little bit more yards on this play than the standard team does in this particular situation? Chargers not as good there. Kansas City very good in that situation. But then in terms of getting sacks, the Chargers number 1 in that defensive pass rush. That means they have the highest adjusted sack rate. That means they're getting sacks in scenarios maybe where they wouldn't normally be expected. You know, if it's 3rd and 18, those are a scenario where it's going to be very common to get a sack. In this case, the Chargers are actually getting home when it's not expected. And then Kansas City actually below average there in terms of that sack rate. So just keep that in mind. Kansas City, a little bit better overall in pass offense than the Chargers, but the Chargers should be able to generate a pass rush against Kansas City there. So they're probably going to be looking to keep the ball underneath too. You know, could be the Kadarius Toney show this week in that regards, but we always see Travis Kelce's number 1 option. In terms of those receivers, it seems like Rashee Rice has been the one that you actually want in your lineup, so keep that in mind. But yeah, kind of an interesting shape here for the pass protection side. Getting into the run blocking, we see Kansas City actually 29th. That's pretty poor. Fortunately for them, Chargers also in the red. Kansas City 29th. Los Angeles is 24th in stopping the run. So we might have Pacheco with a little bit more running room than he's particularly used to in this particular matchup. So I don't see him having too poor of a game, especially if this passing offense is under duress a little bit. They might lean to the run game to relieve that a little bit. And then we're getting into the DVOA, 16 for Kansas City, 24 for Los Angeles. In terms of pace, we do have Chargers playing pretty fast. We did see this from Kellen Moore when he was with Dallas the last few years. They play pretty quick. The only difference is they're dead last in the league in terms of pace of play when they're trailing by 7+. I'm assuming this is still fairly quick, but they probably just don't change their overall pace when they're trailing. It's probably pretty even, and that pace is pretty quick when you're either leading or neutral situations or overall. It's just when you're trailing by 7+, they're 32. And I don't think the Chargers actually have been trailing by 7+ all that often in this particular season. So that's probably why they have a really strange number there. In Kansas City, you actually see kind of middle of the pack. Nothing too great there. 25th in overall pace of play. Those neutral situations, top 10 in the middle of the pack there when they're leading, when it's close, 13th. And then when they're trailing, they're actually one of the slower teams if it's by 7 or more. This is a game, 5.5 Vegas game total. It's probably one of the furthest lines in terms of biggest favorites in the main slate here. So an interesting one here. I see this being fairly close. Chargers going to have to pass, avoid that run. Your prop bets over there on Eckler should hit with their reception total and their rush yards under. Keep that in mind. So we're going to skip down to the number 2 game on the slate. I just want to point out that for your tournaments, all the top 4 games on the slate, so there's 11 total. The top 4 of them are actually all the afternoon games. So there's 4 afternoon games. Those are number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 on the slate. Just as a heads up. If it looks like you're dominating your slate at the very beginning and you got a bunch of these people from the early slates, probably not going to end well for you, considering you're getting games that had those lower Vegas totals and there's the higher Vegas totals yet to come. So keep that in mind. It's going to be a lot of low scores going into those evening games or the afternoon games or the late Sunday games, I guess. So getting into number 2 game here, Green Bay heading into Denver. Green Bay is actually 1-point favorites here. We dropped down from 48 to 45 Vegas game total as the second best on the slate. That gives Green Bay a 23-point team implied total, Denver at 22. Green Bay 5th best team total on the slate, Denver 8th. All right, getting into Green Bay, number 12 in that offensive pass protection, number 11 in pass DVOA, Denver 28 and 32 in those categories. This is indicative that Green Bay will have plenty of time to pass the ball. And typically when a quarterback's got plenty of time to pass the ball, that leads to deep targets, a couple of times a game that are probably going to connect where they have that time to throw it. If the receiver can get open, yay. For fantasy points on that. Considering Green Bay actually and Jordan Love have the highest average depth of target on their pass attempts this season, I would say that is a good situation for Green Bay in this matchup. It's really good for Christian Watson. I think he'll have a pretty solid week this week. I haven't heard much about him in terms of the DFS streets this week, so he's going to be a very interesting play for me in these tournaments. I'm not sure if he's going to be popular, but this is shaping up to be a very good situation for him in terms of having tons of time to throw. They're already throwing at the deepest rate in the entire league, and he profiles very well as a very good deep receiver. So that could continue to be successful for him and the Green Bay Packers this week. Getting into the run blocking, Green Bay 26th and 27th, not very good there. Denver 12th and 31st at stopping the run. This was a pretty even matchup in terms of the DVOA. The run blocking end, though, Green Bay 26th, Denver 12th, indicating that they're probably not going to be able to run the ball as effectively as they would like in this particular matchup. The pass game is going to be very effective, should have plenty of time there. I do like the odds of this game, leaning into the pass, and especially if it's going to be close here. Jordan Love, a little sneaky GPP dart throw there. I don't hate that. Combine him with Christian Watson. We've already seen him put up multi-touchdown games to begin the season pretty frequently, and Denver has just been giving it up on defense for whatever reason this season after being pretty good in that department last year. So, interesting one there. Probably avoiding the run game for the Packers and looking at Christian Watson, and anybody getting those deep passes in this particular game should be pretty good. I think Dobbs also does some deep routes for Green Bay there as well. All right, getting into the Denver side, they're 21st in pass protection, 20th in pass DVOA. Green Bay is slightly better than them at 15 and 14. Pretty even matchup here, slightly favoring Green Bay. Nothing really to write home about here. Probably going to have a little bit less time than Russell Wilson would like, but not a terrible amount. So whatever their pass proclivities are, probably going to maintain the same in this particular environment. So we've seen Sutton usually the biggest beneficiary of these particular matchups. Getting into the run game, Denver 27th and 11 in run DVOA. Green Bay 26th and 26th. This is indicating to me, hey, studs are going to eat in this particular scenario on the run game for Denver. I think Denver is probably going to lean on the run a little bit in this game. The pass game hasn't been great. It sounds like they were trying to trade Jerry Jeudy. Whatever the case may be, it doesn't seem like Sean Payton's super happy with that pass game at the moment. It seems like him and Russ are quarreling. I would expect Denver to lean pretty heavily into the run game on this. Javonte Williams and the hero of my machine learning algorithm in the offseason, Jaleel McLaughlin. If you didn't hear or weren't aware, he was the 6th best actually in terms of overall projected best season career fantasy points per game. So it identified him. He's coming out of nowhere, kind of out of nowhere for most people. My machine learning model identified him as somebody that could be very good if given opportunities, and it seems like he is that way. So I like Javonte Williams, and especially Jaleel McLaughlin if you're going to be playing on a site that's giving him for super cheap. I'm not sure what he's at these days on DraftKings or FanDuel, but certainly worth a look. I wouldn't be surprised to see him score a touchdown in this particular matchup this week. So keep that in mind. If you're in trouble at the running back position and you have him, he's certainly startable, that McLaughlin that is. But really in terms of DFS content, I would say get the run game for Denver, get Watson and potentially Love here in the Green Bay game. Again, this is number 2 game total on the slate, so Vegas is projecting it to be one of the higher scoring affairs this week. Getting into the third game on the slate, we have Pittsburgh heading into Los Angeles. Los Angeles, the home team there, get the standard 3-point favorite, dropping down to a Vegas game total here of 44. That gives Los Angeles a 23.5-point team implied total, 4th best on the slate. Pittsburgh, 20.5 team implied total, top 10 there at 10th overall. Let's get into it. Pittsburgh, number 22 in offensive pass protection, 25 in DVOA. The Los Angeles Rams are slightly better than them at 18 and 19, but this is kind of a situation where studs eat. We should have Deontay Johnson coming back from injury for Pittsburgh, which throws in another wrinkle. We do have Pat Freiermuth already ruled out for this particular matchup. Sounds like whatever issue he's dealing with, I believe it's a concussion. He's still out on that, unfortunately for him. So studs eat. I think this is going to be a Pickens game. And with Deontay Johnson coming back, he could certainly fall into that category, especially when we look at the run blocking being so mismatched there. I would say Pittsburgh's going to be leaning on Pickens. It's going to be leaning on Deontay Johnson. And probably we're going to see quite a bit of Jaylen Warren in the pass game in this particular game, especially with Pat Freiermuth out. Deontay Johnson's probably going to suck up quite a few targets, but I do like Jaylen Warren actually getting some looks in this as well. Just touching on that run game, 30th and 31st for Pittsburgh, the Rams 8th and 20. Would not expect Najee Harris to be very good in this. Not sure what his line's being set at in terms of rush yards, but if he reaches 50 in this particular matchup, especially with them being underdogs, I would say anywhere in between 50, 55 yards would be his ceiling in this matchup. Anything, with a line north of 55, I'm for sure hitting that under on Najee Harris's rush yards in this game. But yeah, Pittsburgh probably moving the ball via the air. Avoid that run game. Jalen Samuel is probably viable in PPR leagues for your lineups, especially considering all the injuries and the buys this week. Getting into the Rams side, on the offensive pass protection, they're actually 27th, but their pass DVOA is number 9, so they're very explosive moving the ball. The problem is staffers have been taking sacks, especially in situations where they shouldn't, so that's why it's at 27. Pittsburgh's pass rush certainly should be overcoming the Los Angeles Rams offensive line there. So expect the passing time not to be super great for Los Angeles in this. I think probably going to have to get the ball out a little bit quicker. But Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp certainly plenty capable of getting open and quickly. So I don't think this is going to be an issue for the Rams. It hasn't been with both of those two in the game, but we saw Puka with a little bit of a down week. I think this is potential to take advantage of that. And you're going to start him in your seasonal leagues for sure. In this particular matchup, it should be good. Getting into the run blocking, 16 for Los Angeles' run blocking, number 5 in their run DVOA. Pittsburgh 23rd in run DVOA is 19th on defense. This is indicating that Los Angeles should be a little bit more effective on the ground game than perhaps they're maybe used to. They're number 5 in the run DVOA, so it's been pretty effective. The problem with Los Angeles is who the heck's going to be toting the rock? I couldn't tell you. I think there's a case to be made for like 4 running backs in their running back room right now that they could be the lead back. But if I was going to put my money on it, I think it's going to be a split backfield. I don't think they're going to give one person all of the love. Myles Gaskin, I think, would be the one that I'd be avoiding the most. He just came on recently. I don't think he's going to know the offense that well. a lot of times for a running back, that doesn't necessarily matter. If they're going to be in there, it's probably not going to be a passing situation where they need to know pass protection. They're either going to be running a route or, getting the ball. So if they're in there, that's probably what's going to be happening in terms of for Myles Gaskin, Royce Freeman, and the other people, Zach Evans, that were already in Los Angeles and, installed this offense into their brain recently. I would expect them to lean a little bit more heavily on them. I just don't think anybody's going to get this backfield to themselves. So in general, it's going to be in a void. I just think they're going to be fine on the running side. They should be able to move the ball well. I think they'll be able to sustain drives. They'll need to get the ball out a little bit quicker, but with the run game being fairly successful, I would expect Los Angeles to be able to move the ball very effectively and get into the red zone quite frequently, which is going to lead to some touchdowns, obviously. And who's going to be scoring those? It's probably not going to be going to the running backs this particular matchup. So Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Tyler Higbee, maybe, I think are your best options in terms of LA touchdowns. If they score 3 or 4 in this particular matchup, I would expect all of them to be going to those 3 people. And maybe we see Matt Stafford with a little bit better touchdown regression in this particular game against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh does play quick. Los Angeles not too crazy quick on there, but they're middle of the pack kind of in those neutral situations or when leading. Number 10 in overall pace of play, though, because they apparently have been trailing by 7+ quite a bit to drag that up. Anyway, that's going to do it for the number 4 game total on the slates. They're Pittsburgh and Los Angeles. Actually, I went into the number 4 one without going into number 3, which is Arizona and Seattle. My mistake there. So Arizona heading into Seattle. This is a 44.5 Vegas game total. And with the Seattle being 8-point home favorites, pretty big line there. So Seattle 26.25 team implied total. Second best on the slate this week. Arizona down at 18.25, which is 16th. Not very good there, but the overall game environment is third best. Getting into Arizona side, offensive pass protection 9th. Seattle 17th in that pass rush. Arizona 13th in the pass DVOA. Seattle's defense 24th in the pass DVOA. Indicative that Arizona should have plenty of time to throw the ball in this particular matchup. Just a matter of whether or not Joshua Dobbs can get it to his receivers. But we've seen Hollywood Brown be pretty effective this year. He's in play. Michael Wilson has a dart throw, always in play. Rondale Moore has been seeing some volume here and there. Probably not a bad option either, especially considering the run blocking. It's not like a really poor mismatch or anything, but they're 13th for Arizona's offensive run blocking. Seattle number 10, so top 10 there. Pretty close. Run DVOA, Arizona pretty good at number 8, but Seattle number 1 in the defensive run DVOA. So they've really been pretty good against the run. I would be fading that Arizona running back room anyway. In this particular matchup, they're going to be down. In this particular matchup, it seems like they're going to be down. So the rush attempts probably aren't going to be there for the Cardinals. It's going to be mostly the air. DFS dart throws on Dobbs, probably not, but if you want to get a piece like Hollywood Brown or Michael Wilson as one of those one-off situations, probably not that bad of an option in this week. Getting into the Seattle side, they are number 11 in the offensive pass protection, number 7 in pass DVOA, so they've been pretty good in the pass game. Arizona 17th in the pass rush, so not getting too many sacks there, but 31st in the offensive pass DVOA, so really poor there. Seattle should have some time to throw the ball. They're not going to be under duress. And then it seems like they're pretty explosive in general. I'd expect Seattle's pass game to be very good in this. And then getting actually into the run blocking side, this is even more juicy. Seattle number 1 in offensive run blocking, Arizona 31st. So Seattle's been very good. That's a huge mismatch there in the favor of Seattle's offense. And then run DVOA 13th for Seattle, so closer to the middle of the pack, but still pretty good. Arizona is still at the bottom, 29th in run DVOA. This is suggesting Seattle should be able to move the ball at will against Arizona on this. Arizona, if they're not too bad in terms of the pass protection, could push the ball and score some points that way. with being able to move the ball in the air. Again, this is one of those scenarios where, unfortunately, Arizona's not leading, but this is a game where the kicker might do really well, where the pass game is pretty solid, but the run game isn't looking so hot. That those are situations where drives stall out sometimes, and then it leads to some field goals there. Wouldn't be surprised to see Arizona end up with 2 or 3 field goals in this. The unfortunate thing is if they're already down like 2 or 3 touchdowns, by halftime, they're probably not going to be kicking a ton of field goals to begin with. Just keep that in mind. But Seattle should really trample all over Arizona. The big thing is, can Arizona keep pace with that pass game, potentially, which could lead to a big shootout situation. But I do really like Kenneth Walker. Pretty much everybody from Seattle, Jackson Smith and Jigba might be a very good option in this particular matchup. Maybe they get him rolling in this particular situation. Tyler Lockett's obviously been good. DK Metcalf has been good. I think Seattle gets right on offense in this. So you're going to want a lot of pieces from the Seattle into your DFS lineup. Certainly start everybody that you have from Seattle in your matchups this week. And even maybe a little bit further down, if Seattle's really stomping them, hey, they've scored their 4 touchdowns. It's 28-7 or something. Maybe we see Zach Charbonnet get a little additional volume towards the end of this particular matchup just to close it out and grind out the clock there. Arizona, pretty quick. Seattle, middle of the pack, or a little bit quicker on pace of play, so that bodes well for this particular game as well. Again, all these top 4 games, all on the late slate. Seattle looking like the best option out of everybody in terms of the adjusted line play, and their offense just should be screaming in this. All right, let's get into some of these day games. We have Baltimore and Detroit, and really this one best on the early slate, but do want to point out that the weather in this should probably play a factor. It's going to be close to 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds. We're going to have gusts probably in the 30 to 35 range there. That's really going to have an effect on the pass game. There's a situation where we did see Jameson Williams score last week, but he's more of the deep threat. I would say avoid him. I'm not sure what his prop bets are going to be, but you can probably avoid bet the below on him in this particular matchup because I don't think you're going to get very many deep bombs with that 20-mile-an-hour wind. It's also going to play an effect for the Baltimore when we get into it, but just be aware that the weather is going to play an effect in this game when we should get into it. Baltimore, 3-point home favorites here, 43 Vegas game total, 5th best on the slate, so that gives Baltimore a 23-point team implied total, which is 5th best on the slate. Detroit actually the 3-point underdogs here and 12th best on the slate. Getting into the away team here, Detroit 4th in offensive pass protection, 4th in pass DVOA, pretty good there. Baltimore 24th in the defensive pass rush, but 3rd in the pass DVOA, suggesting that their overall pass defense has been pretty good. They just haven't been generating sacks, and Detroit should be able to give some protection to Jared Goff in this. With the win the way it is, I don't think that's going to be necessarily an issue. This does present itself as Goff having tons of time to throw, but that's not going to lead to very many deep shots, I think, with this 19-mile-an-hour wind, unless you're going with it. So maybe the first quarter, third quarter, or second quarter, fourth quarter, they can kind of huck that deep ball if the wind's at their back. But if it's a side wind, I'm not really sure how that's going to play, or if it's swirling in there. Those deep shots are just not going to be tried, I don't think. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta should be the ones that you're looking at. Jahmyr Gibbs potentially as a pass catcher, but those are, I think, you're going to be your biggest beneficiaries. Josh Reynolds perhaps running some routes there underneath, getting some love. He could be in play as well in this matchup. It's a very, 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 very deep dart throw. I wouldn't expect a ceiling game out of him, but if you want somebody super cheap in cash, he might be an option. Getting into the run blocking side for Detroit, kind of interesting here. They were 4th and 4th in their pass protection. They're actually 7th and 7th in the run blocking categories. So pretty solid there across the board for their offensive line. Baltimore 14th in stopping the run, 7th in run DVOA. So pretty even matchup there. Slightly in the favor of Detroit with this run blocking. I wouldn't expect Detroit to be leaning on the run game, especially with Montgomery out and Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit banged up with his hamstring. I think they're going to lean on the pass game. I think that's going to lead to a ton of underneath targets to Amon-Ra St. Brown, ton of targets to Sam Laporta. I would expect them to be the biggest beneficiaries of this weather game and this particular offensive line, defensive line matchup with Baltimore. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8 receptions or more. I think prop bet wise, I would be going that route. It's a pretty good, solid one, I think, based off of this information, especially with Detroit as underdogs. Getting into the Baltimore side, they are number 4 in offensive pass protection. Detroit 14th in the pass rush, so that's kind of the sack category. The overall pass DVOA for Detroit 5, Baltimore on offense 14th, so that's in the favor of Detroit in terms of how well they've just been in general on those offensive and defensive pass sides. Really indicative that probably not taking sacks here from Lamar Jackson in this particular situation. The pass DVOA indicative that they're not going to be super explosive though, so probably keeping it underneath anyway because of the wind. That's going to be a good for Zay Flowers. We've seen him really operate in the lower boundaries there, getting those behind the line of scrimmage passes, things like that. He's been the biggest beneficiary on those short passes. Same with Mark Andrews. I think that continues this week. Those are your 2 options in the pass game. Getting into the run game, Baltimore number 8 and number 4 in the run DVOA. Detroit's pretty good, pretty much matching them evenly there at number 10 and number 3. Baltimore in a similar situation. They just got backups in there. Nothing really to write home about. They mix in everybody, and it's a okay matchup. Studs eat kind of scenario. I just don't think Baltimore has any studs right now in their backfield. But that shouldn't limit them in this particular game. They should be fine running the ball. Passing the ball, they're going to need to get those quicker passes to Zay Jones and Mark Andrews. Again, lower game totals. Pick out the players that you want in this. Lamar with Andrews or Lamar with Flowers. I don't think I'd be double stacking in this particular situation. Getting into the prop bet side, I would assume those 2 will be pretty good in terms of their target volume. So take that into consideration as well. All right. Top 5 teams now. Let's get in number 6, Cleveland at Indy. This is a dome game, so we don't need to worry about the crazy weather like we did last game. Again, sixth best game total on the slate at 41. We're already down there near 40, which is bad. Cleveland going into Indianapolis as 3.5-point road favorites, which gives Cleveland a 22.25 team implied total, 7th best on the slate for themselves. Indianapolis, 18.75, 15th best. Getting into the Cleveland side, they're number 26 in offensive pass protection, 31st in pass DVOA, so they've really been poor. Indianapolis, 14th and 17th in those pass DVOA categories. This is suggesting Cleveland probably not going to have a ton of time to throw. It sounds like Watson may or may not be back, kind of up in the air. Probably not going to want to start him if he's not been practicing. He's already been pretty rusty since he came to Cleveland in terms of how he's looked as a quarterback compared to his Houston days. So going to be probably a fade on that Cleveland pass game in this situation. Getting into the run blocking side, 21st and 21st for Cleveland, 23rd and 18 for Indianapolis. This is suggesting that's probably going to be the route that Cleveland is most effective in terms of trying to move the ball. It's probably going to be on the ground. It's probably going to be more of a Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt type game, especially with this pass game struggling like that. If you think Indianapolis is going to get after Cleveland, which is certainly possible, you could maybe sneak in the Indy defense here, but I think it's going to lead to some more quick passes for Cleveland, and could be a few more dump offs to like Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford there in that department. But otherwise, Amari Cooper is probably the biggest beneficiary of a matchup like this. He's been the one consistent option there in Cleveland in the pass game, but probably not an option that I'm attacking in DFS on a slate like this week. Just keep that in mind. It should be a little bit interesting here. Cleveland looks like they're going to be struggling to move the ball if they're going to be moving it, it's probably going to be most effective on the ground. Indianapolis side, they're 16th in offensive pass protection, number 18 in pass DVOA. Unfortunately for them, they bring in that Cleveland defense, number 3 overall in the pass rush, so getting some sacks, and then number 1 overall pass DVOA there. Really a problem for Gardner Minshew and the Indianapolis offensive line there. Cleveland should be dominant in that aspect. So when Indianapolis goes back to throw, probably not going to have a ton of time, need to get the ball out quick. It's going to lead to probably dump-offs to the tight end. It's going to lead to dump-offs to the running back, which we've seen Gardner Minshew do. It's probably going to lead to some sacks and some turnovers from Minshew as well. Cleveland defense certainly in play in this matchup. Run blocking side, Indianapolis 13 and number 6 on the run DVOA side. Unfortunately for them, Cleveland's defense is really good. They're number 2 in stopping the run and number 4 in the run DVOA. So really dominant game here from Cleveland's defense. If you got them in seasonal leagues, congratulations. They're probably going to have a monster week for you this week. They're probably the most expensive defense on the DFS slate this week. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the cash values yet, but certainly if you have the money, they would be a solid option. I don't really like this game in general. If Indianapolis isn't going to be moving the ball, if Cleveland's going to be struggling moving the ball in the pass game, and they're really best matchup here is Cleveland's run game, I think it's just going to be a low-scoring affair. I would, prop bet-wise, bet the under on that 41 total in this, unless you think there's going to be some defensive scores. I think that could push up that Vegas game total, but otherwise I think it's the run game from Cleveland. And then Indianapolis is really going to struggle here. I'm not sure who you would want. Zach Moss maybe as a dart throw, but he's probably getting expensive considering how he's been performing. So interesting game there. Not one that I'm going to be focusing on or probably grabbing much of anyone unless it's like a cheap Jerome Ford or a cheap Kareem Hunt. Unfortunately, with all of the running back situation stuff going on, Kareem Hunt might be viable in a PPR league this week. So if you have to start him, like I said, unfortunately, you have to start him, which I'm going to be in one of my dynasty leagues this week. So kind of an interesting one there. All right, number 7 game on the slate. It's actually the last one that's solo here, and then we have 3 of them tied for the worst on the slate at number 8. So getting into this one, Buffalo heading into New England. Buffalo actually 8-point road favorites. Wow. Not very high praise there for New England at home. That's a Vegas game total of 40 already. 7th best, as I said. That gives Buffalo a 24-point team implied total, which is 3rd best on the slate. New England, 16, which is number 20 on the slate. That's one of the worst. 2nd, 3rd worst there. So getting into the Buffalo offensive pass protection side, number 5 and number 3 in the DVOA category. New England, number 8 in the defensive pass rush. So they've been pretty successful in getting sacks this season. Unfortunately for them, the pass DVOA is there at number 23, which is indicative that Buffalo's pass offense should be okay. Moving the ball, they're probably going to be a little bit explosive and not have any issues necessarily. They just might take a few extra sacks in this game. Then getting into the run blocking side, Buffalo number 3, New England 25th in stopping the run, and then that run DVOA is pretty even up there, a little bit in the favor of New England. This is indicating, I think, that Buffalo should be fairly solid moving the ball in the ground here. James Cook probably an option. Latavius Murray we've seen get plenty of volume there. Unfortunately for James Cook managers, probably a little bit too much volume in terms of what they would like to see. But really, this is telling me Buffalo's not going to struggle too much moving the ball. I know they might take a few sacks or be in that realm, but the pass DVOA is really telling me that Buffalo should be fine in that pass game. And then this run blocking should also be good. So expect Buffalo to be able to move the ball fairly effectively. In these scenarios, I do really like Diggs to be solid. This typically with the sack indicator, probably not super good for Gabe Davis this week. So Diggs could be heavily involved. Maybe some of the underneath stuff to the tight ends. We have Knox there, Kincaid, probably that route, but I would say Diggs is probably going to dominate. the run game going to be effective there. Latavius Murray as a DFS dart throw in terms of could he score 2 touchdowns in this matchup? Certainly possible. James Cook could certainly take some volume too and run with it, no pun intended, in this particular matchup. But Buffalo should be fine on offense. They are the 3rd best team total on the slate, just be aware. New England, pretty poor here, 26th and 30th in the pass protection categories. And Buffalo, number 2, number 8. So green for the defense, red for the offense. That spells disaster typically. We've seen some really bad games out of Mac Jones. That's probably going to continue this week. Expect that to be really poor. The interesting thing is they usually put a game plan in that's just so bizarre. Maybe we see one of those games here in New England. They also have like a 13-mile-an-hour sustained wind, gusts up in the 20, where they just don't pass the game and pass the ball in New England in this particular matchup. And it's just run, and they kind of take the ball out of Mac Jones' hands, maybe just getting those quicker underneath passes out in New England. I don't even know who that would be to. The running backs, tight ends, maybe. Hunter Henry has a bigger game in this matchup, but really it's not a good situation for the pass protection there for New England. Don't expect them to have a ton of success, or if New England's pricing that into their game plan, don't expect them maybe to have a ton of even pass attempts in this game. New England's run blocking 14th, Buffalo number 9 in stopping the run, and then New England 23rd in the run DVOA, Buffalo number 12, slightly in the favor of Buffalo for the run stopping and all that. So New England probably just off limits in terms of starting anybody in your season long leagues. Buffalo pieces are going to be fine. I just don't know if you're going to want to necessarily. Maybe you could onslaught Buffalo if you think they're really just going to dominate on defense, give the ball to the offense, and they're going to score a bunch of touchdowns. You could get 3 options there from Buffalo's team if you really think they're going to run up the score there in New England. But again, the wind's going to play a factor potentially in this. I think Steph Diggs is fine. I think the run game's fine from Buffalo. And how we're going to be attacking this particular matchup. Nobody from New England, and then those couple of options from Buffalo in this matchup. All right. We got 3 games tied for the 8th game on the slate. We'll just get into those. Those are Atlanta at Tampa Bay, Las Vegas at Chicago, and New York Giants at Washington. They're all at 37.5 points as of Saturday morning. Getting into the Atlanta-Tampa Bay game. Again, 37.5 Vegas game total. Tampa Bay 2.5-point home favorites, giving them a 20-point team implied total. 12th best on the slate. Atlanta 17.5, and their team implied total, that gives them 17th best team implied total on the main slate. Offensive pass protection wise, Atlanta number 25 and 23rd in the pass DVOA. Tampa Bay number 3 in that pass rush, so they're getting home. Tampa Bay number 11 in the pass rush and DVOA, so almost top 10 here. Atlanta probably going to be struggling on the pass game. I would say certainly going to see some sacks there from Desmond Ridder. Could lead to some more, scramble attempts from him. So maybe the rush yards over for Desmond Ridder, whatever that is on the prop bet. I could see him hitting that. But not good for the Atlanta pass game. Shouldn't have a ton of time. It's going to probably struggle. Avoid Pitts. I think he's been solid the last couple of weeks, but that's one of these scenarios where I think that pass game is really going to struggle. Getting into the run blocking, Atlanta number 20 and number 17 in the run DVOA categories. Tampa Bay 31st in the run stopping and number 10 in the run DVOA. So really, I think Tampa Bay good at not giving up explosive plays, but if Atlanta's going to be moving the ball, it's going to be on the ground. It's probably going to be a little bit better for Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier in this matchup. Wouldn't expect the pass game to be super good, especially with this run blocking. If Ritter's scrambling a little bit more, they might have a little bit additional, yardage from Ridder when he does scramble in those situations. We'll see if he gets any designed runs. He could be okay on those, but if Atlanta's moving the ball, it's through Bijan Robinson, especially if this is going to be a nightmare. Those underneath throws are going to go to Bijan. Him having 5 or 6 receptions in this would not shock me, not even close. So prop bet for him over on those receptions. And then, yeah, I think that's really what it's going to be. Tyler Algier probably going to have some run opportunities in this as they struggle on the pass game. All right, Tampa Bay, number 22 in the offensive pass protection. Atlanta, 30th. Tampa Bay, 15 in the offensive pass DVOA. Atlanta, 29th. So Atlanta really poor there in the pass defense. Tampa Bay should be just fine passing the ball in this. They should have time to throw, and they should be fairly explosive when they do. Mike Evans week, probably within play for Tampa Bay on this, as well as Godwin, but we haven't seen him really be the main beneficiary of the pass game in this season with Baker Mayfield. Getting into the run blocking, Tampa Bay 20th in run blocking, 28th in the run DVOA. Atlanta 17th in stopping the run and 9th in the run DVOA. DVOA matchup there pretty heavily in favor of Atlanta's defense, so probably going to see some struggles with Tampa Bay's run defense, especially when this one's even up. Really a studs eat scenario. Tampa Bay doesn't look like Rachaad White's particularly a stud in his run game department. Certainly pretty good in the pass game, but his rushing leads a lot to be desired from the looks of it. But really, Tampa Bay pass game is the best matchup here outside of Atlanta's run game. But I think Tampa Bay pass game, Bijan, probably the only person from Atlanta that would be interested in housing in any of rosters on DFS. And then I'm fine here with the Tampa Bay offense if you want Evans as just like a one-off piece. Again, these are 37.5 Vegas game totals. This is shaping up to not be particularly great in terms of Atlanta's offense or Tampa Bay's run game. So keep that in mind. Getting into the Las Vegas, heading into Chicago game. We have Las Vegas actually has 2.5-point road favorites going into Chicago with Tyson Bagent leading the way for Chicago. And that 37.5 Vegas game total tells us that Vegas has a 20-point team implied total, 12th best on the slate, similar to the last game. Chicago 17.5 with the 17th best game on the team total on the slate. Getting into the Vegas side, they're number 11 in pass protection, number 22 in pass DVOA. Chicago 30th and 30th in the pass game. That tells us Las Vegas is going to have plenty of time to throw the ball. We do have Brian Hoyer there. These veterans, they're wily. They probably know to lock on. I think this is a situation where we do see Davante Adams get peppered with targets in this matchup. We heard some rumblings in social media this week with him and the amount of volume he's getting. Squeaky wheel probably gets the grease in this one. Really don't mind Davante Adams, especially when the run game is pretty poor. Las Vegas 29th and 30th. Chicago number 6th and 17th in stopping the run. So I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to have a pretty poor game here, but I really, really like Davante Adams in this. I think Brian Hoyer is just going to lock onto him, and those veterans, they just know, hey, this dude's always open. It's going to be good for him. The rest of the pass game, Jacoby Myers has been really good. He could be good. Michael Mayer, we have seen Chicago really give it up against tight ends, so he's certainly in play, and Brian Hoyer could potentially be targeting him as well, but I really think it's going to be the Davante Adams show here in Chicago for the Raiders in this particular matchup. Weather-wise, I don't think I had any notes on this, so I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue, so keep that in mind. Should be fine. Las Vegas moving the ball. If you want to do a deep dart throw DFS on the quarterback there, be my guest. He's certainly capable of getting it to Davante Adams and having him do a lot of the heavy lifting. So keep that in mind. Getting into the Chicago side, they're 31st in offensive pass protection, 28th in pass DVOA. Las Vegas slightly better than them at 20 and 16. So in the favor there of Las Vegas. They should be able to get after the quarterback in this. Tyson Bagent, a rookie from Division II, nonetheless. So this could be a very interesting matchup for the Vegas defense. I think they're streamable in your season-long leagues. They're certainly playable and probably going to be, they're probably going to be very popular in DFS, just going against a rookie D2 player. Fortunately for Chicago, they're number 4 in run blocking and number 9 in the run DVOA. when the Vegas Raiders are at 28-27. Raiders absolutely getting stomped on the ground here. This is a big favor of a matchup for Chicago. The game plan going into this is probably keep it out of Badgett's hand and into the run game. So D'Onta Foreman, really disappointed last week. I think he comes back and smashes this week. We do have Roschon Johnson out. So D'Onta Foreman week. And, with this lower game total, it could be Devontae Adams and D'Onta Foreman in your lineups as those one-off pieces to complete the puzzle for you. But don't expect a ton of back and forth shootouts here. But those will be the biggest beneficiaries in this matchup. All right. Getting into the final one of the main slate, New York Giants and Washington. A couple gross teams here. A lot of red on this particular matchup. We do see that 37.5 Vegas game total as of Saturday morning here. Washington, 3-point road favorites, 20.25 team implied total for them, 11th best on the slate. Giants, 17.25, 19th team implied total on the slate. All right, getting into the Washington side, they're number 32 in pass protection, 26 in the pass DVOA. Really poor. Fortunately for them, the Giants suck on defense, 31 and 26 in those pass rush and pass DVOA categories. Pretty much the exact same as Washington. That's an even up matchup. Your studs will eat. I think Washington is littered with studs on their offense across the board. I think Gibson is a stud, although we haven't really seen that in the pass game. McLaurin certainly a stud. I think Jahan Dotson's really good. We've seen Curtis Samuel be very good. I think that stuff just continues in this matchup. They should be fine there in terms of being able to move the ball in the air. The run blocking side is very interesting here. So number 19 in run blocking for Washington, number 10 in run DVOA. Giants 32nd and 30th. Washington should not have any issue moving the ball against this Giants defense. Keep that in mind. No issues with the offense here. Brian Robinson certainly could have himself a lot of work in this matchup, especially if they're going to be, favored to win this game. Do want to note that the wind in this game could play an effect. It's 16 sustained winds projected for this matchup, which could lead to some higher gusts as well, and some swirling wind there in the Giants stadium. Are they going to be passing the ball a bunch? It's probably going to be more underneath. Again, that's the Curtis Samuel route tree for the Washington Commanders here. So Samuel could be certainly in play for a bigger game this week as well. Interesting DFS dart throw for sure. Getting into the Giants side, 32nd in offensive pass protection, 32nd in offensive pass DVOA, really poor. Washington, number 7 in the defensive pass rush. So they're really getting after the quarterback, getting sacks in those scenarios. Problem is their secondary is really poor. So they're 27th in that pass DVOA. So their pass game overall is really bad. What this is telling me is Giants might be okay moving the ball, but they're probably going to take a lot of sacks in this. They're going to need to get the ball out quick. That's going to be better for Wan'Dale Robinson. That's going to be better for Darren Waller. And that's going to be better for Barkley in terms of getting targets. I think those are the main beneficiaries of this pass game. Otherwise, Washington defense certainly in play, should be able to get quite a few sacks in this particular matchup. Into the run game, Giants 30th in run blocking, 32nd in run DVOA. Slightly better than their number 32 and number 32 in pass game. They're 30th and 32 in the run game. Really, really poor offensive line here from the Giants. Washington, not super great, but 22 in stopping the run, 14th in that run DVOA. Wouldn't expect Barkley or any of the running backs from the Giants to have a solid week on the ground. It's going to be a lot of quick passes. Giants probably struggling to move the ball in this matchup. Washington defense certainly streamable, despite some of their defensive tendencies in the pass game to be pretty poor. All right, that does it for the main slate. This is a gross game. Not going to have any of these people in any of my lineups for DFS. Curtis Samuel will be the only one I'd be super interested in terms of a one-off piece. All right, let's get into these island matchups. So this week we have Sunday Night Football, a very good one. Miami, potential Super Bowl matchup here. Miami Dolphins heading into Philadelphia. Philadelphia, 2.5-point home favorites. This is a 51.5 Vegas game total as of Saturday morning. Philadelphia, 27 team implied total. Miami, 24.5 team implied total. Getting into the pass protection side for Miami, number 1 and number 2. Philadelphia on the pass rush side, 15th and 20th. Expect Miami to be able to throw the ball on Philadelphia's defense in this particular matchup. Looks very good for them in that department, especially when we head into the run blocking side, number 1 and number 1 for Miami. So they've been stellar in that run game. Philadelphia, though, 5th and 2nd in stopping the run. So I would expect Miami to struggle a little bit more than they're used to in the run game in this matchup with Philadelphia. Philadelphia has been very good in the run game. I think that continues here. I think Miami struggles a little bit to run the ball. Again, these are island matchups. Hit that pass game for Miami. I think it's going to be a Tua and Tyreek and Waddle type of matchup in this, and maybe avoiding the running backs a little bit in this particular matchup. I think they're going to have a lot of time to throw, and that's how they're going to move the ball a little bit more effectively in this scenario. So, interesting one there. Do like the Miami pass game. Maybe fading that run game a little bit from Miami in this matchup. Getting into the Philadelphia side, they're 13th in offensive pass protection, 12th in pass DVOA, and we have Miami 5th best pass rush and 22nd in the pass DVOA. So this is telling me maybe get a little bit of pressure on Philadelphia. There could lead to a few more scrambles from Jalen Hurts, but really the pass game should be okay considering the DVOA matchup is 10 spots better for Philadelphia's offense there. I think the pass game will be okay, which is good because I think Miami's going to be putting up some points on them. Getting into the run blocking, though, it's way better. Philadelphia is number 7 in the offensive run blocking, number 2 in offensive run DVOA. Miami 21st in stopping the run and 25th in the run DVOA. And really, if you think about it, Miami is putting up a massive amount of points. Philadelphia probably wants to keep their offense off the field. How they're going to do that? They're going to run the ball a bunch, especially if we're going to see some Jalen Hurts scrambles or designed runs. I think this is how Philadelphia is going to attack the game. It's going to be a DeAndre Swift. They're going to get probably quite a few of the running backs involved there, but I do like Swift in this particular matchup as an island game. Can he score 2 or 3 touchdowns getting in down close? I'm not entirely sure based off of the pass game here from Philly. I think it'll be okay moving the ball for them on offense. Really, the big benefit for Philadelphia is that run game. So DeAndre Swift and Kenny Gainwell should be considered in your lineups for this island game. All right, getting into the Monday night football game, we have San Francisco heading into Minnesota. And Minnesota is 7-point home underdogs here. So San Francisco coming in there, going to lay the whooping on the Vikings according to Vegas. It's a 44 Vegas game total, 25.5 team implied total for San Francisco. Minnesota 18.5 team implied total there. All right, San Francisco side, 16th in offensive pass protection, number 1 in that pass DVOA category. Minnesota 13th and 15th in the pass DVOA. San Francisco should be fine here. Nothing really to write home about. Should have standard amount of time to throw the ball, and they should be somewhat explosive in terms of the average play there on the offensive side. So expect them to be just fine in the pass game. Run blocking for San Francisco, number 4 and number 3. Minnesota, number 2 at stopping the run and number 16 in the run DVOA. Again, this is pretty even up here. Studs eat. Is McCaffrey going to play? I don't know, actually. Is he going to play? I haven't seen that he's been ruled out yet, but he certainly is a stud. I think Elijah Mitchell's pretty good there. So they should be okay in the run game. They should be okay in the pass game. Expect them to move the ball just fine. In terms of, I don't know, this is almost shaping up to be a field goal type game where they're not super great on the offensive side, but just enough to move the ball, and then maybe they stall out and kick a bunch of field goals in this. I could see that happening in this particular matchup. So Jake Moody in an island game, I don't hate that. It's in a dome. Keep that in the back of your mind as you're setting your lineups in this matchup. Offensive pass protection for Minnesota, number 6. San Francisco, 25th in the pass rush. So Minnesota not getting sacked a bunch. San Francisco not getting a bunch of sacks. But the pass DVOA for San Francisco is number 2, 16th for Minnesota. Telling me that they're probably not going to generate a lot of sacks, but Minnesota's pass game may struggle a little bit in this particular matchup. Getting into the run blocking side, Minnesota 15th and 24th in the run DVOA. San Francisco 19th in stopping the run and 22nd in the run DVOA. This is really telling me that Minnesota is going to be a little bit more effective on the ground than they will via the air, but don't expect them to be super great on offense. If they're going to be effective in one or the other, looks like the run game, but don't expect them to be in run game scenarios. I don't think they're going to necessarily be under pressure. Seems like Minnesota gets the ball out quick, and San Francisco hasn't been able to get those pass sacks very often. I think they're going to struggle a little bit just in general on that side. So what does that mean for Minnesota's pass catchers? Maybe Hawkinson is somebody that you can attack, but kind of an interesting one here in terms of an island game. Really, San Francisco players should be fine. You're probably going to want 4, maybe 5 of them, including that kicker. And then Minnesota side, probably a little bit more sparse there. Like I said, 1 or 2 players from Minnesota side. Should have some time to throw the ball, at least not get sacked, but they're not going to be super effective in terms of moving it very far in this particular matchup. All right, I think that's going to do it for this week's adjusted line play report. Again, this is week number 7, just flying through the NFL week here. I do appreciate everybody tuning in. To all the new subscribers that we have, really appreciate you stopping in. Hope you like the content. Hopefully we can get you a little bit educated on what this adjusted line play report is and how it benefits you. Make your start-sit decisions a little bit easier, make those prop bet decisions more profitable, and make your DFS lineups more profitable as well. That's what we're here for. Give you the information on the adjusted line play report. You take all the other stuff that you're doing for your research, and hopefully we can make a little bit more smart decisions with those roster decisions come Sunday and Monday night. So really appreciate those views. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Give a follow over on Twitter at ToddZilla1337 or at Zilla Fantasy. Really appreciate you tuning in. Have a good weekend, everybody. Let's go win some money together. Adios.